See, they'd given us an order to close because they said we were the wrong zoning, because this was an Aboriginal boarding school. And when we first went there, we had to get a development application. So Michael met with all the heads, and we went through every building, and Michael said, yes, we're using that for housing. Yes, for housing. Yes, we're teaching in there. Yes, that's accommodation. So every building, we were using it for what it had been zoned for. And our original name is Misty Mountain Health and Lifestyle Education Centre. And so when they looked at it, Michael said, well, gentlemen, I think that we comply. And they said, yeah. And we didn't hear anything for 3 years. And then a new mayor came on. And the new mayor contacted Michael and said, close down immediately, you're running illegally. Well, Michael refused to open the letter and just kept sending the letter back. He wouldn't even touch the letter. And so then the mayor rang him and said, Michael, would you please read the letter? So Michael had a meeting and said, we've already had the meeting. And they said, we have no record of that meeting. And we don't believe you comply. Michael said, but we're a teaching institution. And they said, but you're not a registered school. So close down immediately or $10,000 fine. So Michael had to investigate and find out how we had to be zoned as something. So we found out the only thing we could be zoned as was a environmental tourism facility. Now Michael argued with them, we are not tourism, but that's the only thing they would agree with. But then we had to do all of these things to comply with becoming a environmental tourism. We had to have a sprinkler system put all through our health centre, which cost us $70,000. And we had to have all new plans set up. And then the chapel that's right in the middle had to have double glass put on it in case there was a fire. Michael said to the councilman, where's the fire going to come from? That creek, or that creek? And he said to Michael, don't be flippant, Mr. Oneil. But anyway, you have to comply or they will close you down. It was only by the grace of God. It sounds terrible to say this, but Michael's father passed and he was an aged gentleman, and Michael got an inheritance that allowed us to pay the $250,000 that it cost us to remain open. But we have been able, little by little, to, you see, Michael and I own the property and Misty Mountain lease it off us for a small amount, and so that protects Misty Mountain. So just some of the things we have gone through with the devil hating this work and wanting to close us down. But 2 days after we got the order to close down, a councilman drove into the property and drove up in front of the office in the car park. And so Michael went out and said, what are you doing here? And the councilman said, I've come to check if you've got anyone in your rooms. And Michael said, get off my property immediately. And the man said, now there's no need to be like that, I'm just going to have a look. So Michael said, get in your car, and he wouldn't. So Michael pushed him. And he said, this is physical abuse. Michael said, it is not, now get off my property. And so immediately Michael rang the police and told the police what had happened. And they said, good on you, mate, we can't stand that bloke, you'll have no trouble from us. Do you know what a bloke is? Just a man. And then Michael immediately rang up the mayor and complained that we were being harassed. So no more did any council people come out. But what we did was we continued to run, and the guests gave a donation. Michael went to his accountant and found out legally what he could do. So we weren't supposed to have anyone there. But it takes 5 years to build your business up and then close down. So the guests came as friends and gave us donations, and we hung all our washing under the veranda just in case council's looking at us from Google Earth. And Michael parked all the cars in the big shed because there's a big basketball there's a big shed down here that's got a big basketball court in it. That was part of the boarding school. And so we drove all the cars in there. So we continued to run our health retreat through this time. It probably took about 6 months before we were able to comply with everything. And praise be to God that we finally got all the ticks. And so we are running legally now. So that happened to us about, I suppose about 6 years ago now. But what Michael did after this councilman came, he shut the front gate and he put a sign up, no admittance, have to get permission to enter the property. And if they did ask for permission, Michael had this 2-page questionnaire that they had to fill out. They had to write down their name, they had to write down their home address, they had to write down if they'd had a police protection report done on them. Michael had this huge 2 pages if anyone wanted to come onto our property. But no one did, so no one actually went ahead with that. So that's just one story of the, I think, 4 times we've been ordered to close down. Michael went to court to fight this, and he always represents himself because he really likes the spa in the courtroom. And the council had a barrister, and they're wanting the judge to close us down. And the barrister said, Mr. O'Neill has built a building on a road, a designated road. And then Michael said, excuse me, Your Honour, we've built nothing. In fact, state government built it. And there's no road there. Do you know there was a road there 50 years ago? But you know what we had to do? Buy the road. And you can't buy the road, so then we had to rent the road. Oh, if they want to take you down, they go into all these fine little laws. But many of the afflictions of the righteous, and the Lord does deliver us out of them all. But, well, we've had some big battles in an attempt to keep our health retreat running. And I think the bigger you get, the more battles you have. So it's a real blessing, I think, to keep it small. When you keep it small, your overheads are small. And what really made ours go berserk, do you have that word? Berserk? Really mushroom or blossom was when my lectures went overseas. Then we had a lot of people coming from overseas coming.